What's up, Falcon fans? On today's episode, we're going to talk about the Chicago Bears versus the Atlanta Falcons. If you guys like this type of content, hit that like button. If you guys hate this type of content, hit that dislike button or hurt your boy's feelings. Well, maybe it's a little bit, but if you want to do a huge favor for your boy, by hitting that subscribe button, it will help the empire grow. So on that note, let's dive into the 7 categories for today's episode. Let's get started with category number 1. Home field advantage versus home field advantage. The Atlanta Falcons will travel to Soldiers Field, so I'm going to give my points to the Chicago Bears. So now let's talk about category number 2. Coaches versus coaches. Arthur Smith versus Matt Eberflus. Let's talk about Matt first. He is a defensive guy by nature, linebacking coach for the Browns and for the Cowboys, and then for the Indianapolis Colts, the defensive coordinators in 2018 through 2021, and he plays a 4-3 defense. And also when it comes to his offense, he likes to have a 3 wide receiver set and 1 tight end on the field. And when it comes to the defense side of the ball, he likes to use 1 single high, and then he likes to use a 2 second high, and that usually means cover 2. And then when it comes to third down, a lot of times he likes to do man and then use a lot of blitz concepts as well. So when it comes to the entirety of the Chicago Bears, in his first year, it wasn't great. He went 3-14, pretty bad. And I remember they haven't won a game for the past 10 weeks or something like that. And then, of course, they beat the Carolina Panthers this year. So now their record is 6-9, and they're 4th in the division right now. So they're kind of a hard team to kind of recognize because they did, mollywop the Commanders, 40 to 20 points. But they beat the Lions, they beat the Vikings, they beat the Panthers, and they beat the Cardinals, and those are the teams that we lost to. But they did lose to the Broncos, the Chiefs, and the Packers, and the Saints, and the Chargers, and the Browns. So, it flip-flops, so I'm all kind of confused. But when it comes to Arthur Smith, I like his concepts. I like the motion to create the pre-read options. I like when it comes to the play-action pass. And I like his outside zones packages as well. They do pretty good damage. But the problem is the lack of consistency and not scoring more points than we should have, because we keep losing to bad teams for some reason. Where you're trying to be a good team, you got to beat the good teams and the bad teams. We lost to the Commanders, the Titans, the Vikings, the Cardinals, and the Panthers for the second time. But the first time you beat them 24-10, but in the second round you only let them score 9 points and you only scored 7 points, and that just really aches me so much, and I just don't understand why. But you do beat the Colts and the Houston Texans that are on a rise for sure, and they're going to be scary for many years to come. Of course, we have to thank the defense for only allowing one team, and that was the Minnesota Vikings, to score over 30 plus points. And so far, this defense have not allowed any other team besides them to score over 30 plus points per game, like previous regimes where a lot of teams were just scoring touchdowns after touchdowns. It was crazy. So I'm gonna give my points to both sides because I can't figure out who's gonna come out on top. So now let's talk about category number 3. Falcons quarterback wide receiver versus the Bears secondary. Let's start out with the Falcons. So when it comes to the quarterback situation for the Atlanta Falcons, Arthur Smith likes to switch things around. He can never keep one in as a full starter for all 17 games for some reason or not. But, Taylor Heineke, his best game was against the Indianapolis Colts last time we saw them on the battlefield. Now, he got to play in 4 games. Now, some of them, there were full games, and others, there were half of the games he got to play in. But regardless, I like him personally, but how much can he really be successful if he doesn't have the full, blueprint of everything? And when it comes to our wide receiving core, like I keep repeating myself, unfortunately, Drake London is the only best wide receiver option so far. Everybody else is not even comparable at this point in time because everybody else has under 300 receiving yards. They are not really getting the first down completions. They're not being targeted a lot, unfortunately, and they're not getting a lot of receptions they should be. But besides that, Drake London is the GOAT, and everybody else is just like, at this point. So now let's talk about the Bears secondary. When it comes to passing yards allowed, they have a shutdown secondary, no question about it. Their first guy is really scary in Jalen Johnson. He shut down Romeo Doubs, Chris Godwin, J.K. Osborne, Jacoby Myers, Chris Olave, Adam Thielen, Josh Reynolds, and Amon St. Brown. And the only time he ever allowed any other wide receiver to get more than 50 yards was against the LA guy in Josh Palmer, where he was targeted 7 times, caught 5 receptions for a grand total of 52 receiving yards, and that's crazy. And then when it comes to their second guy in Kyler Gordon, he's also a fiend, and he did not allow any other wide receiver besides one guy to get over 70 receiving yards against him. That was against Brandon Powell in Week 12 when he was with the Minnesota Vikings. But everybody else he shut down with Amon St. Brown, Adam Thielen, Chris Olave, Keenan Allen, Hunter Renfrow. And the crazy thing is, both of those guys only allowed one passing touchdowns under their belt. That's scary to think about because we didn't even get into their safety position with Jaquan Brisker and Eddie Jackson at the helm. So I'm going to give my point to the Chicago Bears secondary. Now let's talk about category number 4. Falcons running back, tight end, O-line versus the Bears front 7. Let's start out with the Falcons. The Atlanta Falcons rushing attack was never in question. We ranked number 8 in total with 1,947 total rushing yards. We do a really great job in getting after, the first down conversions as well with 111 first down completions. That ranks us number 7. And of course, we have a 3-headed monster in Bijan, Algier and CP. And then of course, the 2 quarterbacks can also be mobile at the same time, so very devastating. And then of course, our tight ends are really good as well. When it comes to moving down the chains, with Kyle Pitts have 34 first down conversions, and then Jonnu Smith with 25 first down conversions, and they really like to be used in big play mobility, and I love that aspect. And then of course, if you combine their receiving yards in total, they have 1,888 receiving yards out of the 3,277 receiving yards in total with the rest of the team. So that just shows you how much the quarterbacks love using them, and Arthur Smith really like to use them as well. So now let's talk about the Bears front 7. Their biggest weakness so far this year has been getting after the quarterback, because previous years they get after the quarterback like that because they had Robert Quinn, Akeem Hicks, Khalil Mack, and then Roquan Smith at the helm. But now they have hardly anybody besides Montez Sweat they got from the Washington Commanders, and he has 6 sacks for them so far. But they rank 3rd when it comes to getting after the quarterback with only 27 so far. That's pretty terrible. So they do a terrible job on that department. And they rank number 10 when it comes to giving up most yardage when it comes to the passing game with 3,749 total passing yards. But the one bright spot for this whole front 7 is they rank number 1st and not giving up the most rushing yards so far with 1,210 total rushing yards, and they rank number 3rd and not allowing the most rushing touchdowns, and that's with 7. This is a very tricky one because the Falcons are a really good run attack, and if that gets stopped, it depends on the quarterback situation, the play calling. Can they be successful in the air? But if you think about the other side, the Bears are really good at stopping the run, and that's their bread and butter by nature, but they're not so good against the pass. So honestly, I'll have to give my points to the Falcons, but only very slightly. So now let's talk about category number 5. Bears quarterback and wide receiver versus the Falcons secondary. Let's start out with the Bears. It's no secret that the Chicago Bears offensive power has never been that good for previous years. They rank number 29 in total passing yards with 3,005 total passing yards. And then of course Justin Fields has always been, that stigma of him can't throw the ball accurate enough. He's never been really too consistent enough of getting over 300 passing yards per game. So far this year, his best games, oddly enough, was against the Denver Broncos, where he threw for 335 total passing yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception, and that was his first time in 3 years he actually had a game that he threw for 300 yards in a game. That's crazy to think about it, but we cannot deny he can run the ball. I mean, it is scary how good when he uses his feet. Last year, he put himself on the map with 1,143 total rushing yards, 8 rushing touchdowns, and this year he has 585. Now, he's been banged up a couple of games so far, but you know what? Last week against the Cardinals, he had 97 rushing yards, and then his best rushing attack so far this season was against the Detroit Lions, where he had 18 carries for 104 rushing yards. He has 3 rushing touchdowns, and we know that when it comes to the passing game for his wide receiving core, they're not there besides DJ Moore, and we all Falcon fans know what DJ Moore can do with the Falcons. So let's talk about the Falcons secondary. AJ Terrell is a beast. You know, he's a shutdown corner. Of course, he gave up 3 touchdowns, but I do want to iterate this. The first touchdown he gave up, it was a blown coverage. Jesse Bates and him just didn't see eye to eye. Then the second time, Mike Evans, who is a baller, you know, just got the better of him. And then this one really pisses me off against D-Hop, where that should have been a penalty. That should have never been a touchdown allowed. But unfortunately, the refs didn't see that, or they cheated, or whatever. You know, they got paid by the Tennessee Titans, and they called that a touchdown, even though it was not. But besides that, he's been a pretty good, solid corner. With all of our rest of our corners have been solid. Jeff Okudah has not allowed a single touchdown against him so far. But yes, he does get beat, and yes, he does kind of blow out some of the coverages where he doesn't stick with his man. I would like him to do more often than not, but besides that, Jesse Bates is the true, and he's the best free safety in the block, so I can't complain about him at all. And I can't forget about Richie Grant and DeMarco Helms, both having their ups and downs this season. More downs for Richie Grant, but that's a later video to make about, is it just him, or does he need a better system to help him out with certain coverages? Okay, so I want to give my points to the Atlanta Falcons secondary, only if that Justin Fields just uses his legs to beat us, and it might happen in some fashion or not. But until that happens, I think we can shut down the wide receiving core pretty easily. So now let's talk about category number 6. Bears running back, tight end, O-line versus the Falcons front 7. Let's start out with the Bears. So when it comes to Chicago's offensive line, they rank number 25 in giving up 42 sacks in total. That's not very good at all, and you can see that why Justin Fields and the other quarterback doesn't have enough proper time to find the field and convert on situational downs that they really need to move the chain a lot, and that's why they have been very lastering when it comes to the offense side of the ball. When it comes to the passing game, so for the total attempts, they have 465, and for completions, 290. That's not very good. But what the second telling of the story is that they are very dominant in the run game. They rank number 2 with 2,132 total rushing yards with 13 touchdowns for the rushing. And then, of course, when it comes to 20 plus yards of rushing, they have 11. That's pretty good. And when it comes to the first down attempts mark, they have 123. That's really good. And of course, they don't have a lot of powerful star running backs. Now, of course, Foreman, you know, the former Panther, he's a beast. But besides that, they got Khalil Herbert, and his best game was last week where he had 112 rushing yards, 1 rushing touchdown. And so, I mean, he has 459 total rushing yards. But besides that, they don't have anyone that have over 600 rushing yards, or at that point in time. Justin Fields is the closest, and he's their leading rusher. So that's, you know, we have to worry about that. But besides all that, Cole Kmet, their star tight end that has been balling this season with 678 total receiving yards, 6 total touchdowns. He has 35 first down conversions, and he's their second leading receiver, and he's also their second reception guys with 70. He's targeted 86 times, so you know that they love throwing him the ball. He is questionable for this game, and if he's out, that would be a huge victory for the Atlanta Falcons, because they don't do so hot against really good tight ends, especially down the middle. So let's talk about the Falcons front 7. When it comes to sacking the quarterbacks, we rank number 23 with 36. Now for tackle for losses, we have 73. I like that. And then when it comes to like all the quarterback hits, I don't know how much I'm trying to find that statistics out. I can't really find it very well, but I know we've been hitting them a lot if you see in the games. I like the cause of the turnovers, especially with the forced fumbles. We rank number 17. That's really awesome, and I really love that, just to see that. And then when it comes to the interceptions, we have only 8, and of course 6 of those are from Jesse Bates. So you know, it's kind of funny but not, because I want to see more interceptions from everybody else. But besides that, you know, Calais Campbell, you know, 5.5 sacks. I think he leads the Atlanta Falcons, or no, that's Arnold Epicadi with 6. But you know, second to close, it's not bad. But I do like that how Ryan Nelson or sorry, I say Lord Nelson. I'm thinking of the British commander general from the Napoleonic era. I always get that name confused in my head. Sorry, I love military tactics. But besides my history love for the European theater of war, I do love this defense, you know, getting out to the quarterback. Sometimes I don't like it in certain situations and certain coverages, especially those zone coverages. I really hate zone coverages. I understand why you got to use them, but for me personally, man-to-man is usually the best, but I know you get tired doing that often than not. But besides that, I'm really impressed with this defense. This defense still ranks in the top tier of defensive categories and stats in the 10 zone, so I'm loving it. I'm happy for it. And my points go to the Atlanta Falcons front seven. So now let's talk about category number 7. Special teams versus special teams. Let's start with the Falcons. Younghoe Koo is the true. Last week against the Colts, he was 5 for 5 in field goals. You know, he racked up all those points, 17 in total. Thank you, Koo. And of course, his 2 worst games were against the Detroit Lions, where he only missed 1 out of the 3 attempts. So, you know, it's kind of stupid. But the worst one was against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers a couple weeks ago, where he only made 1 out of the 3 attempts. But besides that, you can have a bad game, but never be consistent with it. And when it comes to the Chicago special teams side of the ball, their place kicker, Ricardo Santos, has been doing a fantastic job. 31 attempts, got 29 of those. And the only bad game he really had, and really wasn't that bad of a game, was against the Minnesota Vikings, where he only missed 1 field goal. It was 4, but he had 5 attempts, so it really wasn't that bad. And the other one, I guess you can call was a bad game, where it was against the New Orleans Saints, where he missed 1, but only had 2 attempts. But besides that, he's been stellar. So I'm going to give my points to both of the special teams unit. So now let's talk about my final prediction. I have the Atlanta Falcons winning this close game 23-20. I can see it go either way with both teams, especially with how everything's going to be played out in the snow. It depends if Chicago is going to snow at that point. I don't know. The weather is because it's outside, not inside. But besides that, this is going to be a very crucial game for the Atlanta Falcons to try to go to the playoffs if we win, and then we have to face the Saints the next week. So on that note, if you guys lasted this long to the very end of the video, thank you so much for taking your own personal time and day to watch these Falcon content videos. Here's more on the screen if you guys are interested in. So what do Falcons do? Rise up. Until the next episode, show love and peace to the world, and peace.